It's Terry Sweeney with the Dark Reading News Desk. I'm joined now by Nate Fick, the General Manager of Elastic Security and the former CEO of Endgame, which was acquired by Elastic about 6 months ago. Nate, thanks for joining us today. Really glad to see you.
Thrilled to be here. Thanks, Terry.
This year's RSA theme is the human element, and with so much of the technology focused around automation, AI, and machine learning, for example, how do we see that being balanced against the human element, and especially with regard to the SOC and what seems like a lot of deceleration of staffing in the SOC as well?
Look, I think I would characterize a move from artificial intelligence to human intelligence as an evolution. So I'm glad we're talking about the human element. I think it's the right thing to anchor on.
Okay. Let's talk about the human element as it relates to the most pressing concern in security right now, which is security in the 2020 election. Yeah. In your estimation, have the candidates done enough to protect their campaigns from the cyber threats as we head into the election season?
It's a little bit of a how long's a piece of string kind of question, right? Because you've always done enough until you haven't. And you can never know, right? And one of the things, maybe the thing that in my view makes security different from every other realm of technology is we have a sentient adversary, right? We actually have a living, breathing human being on the other end of the connection who's actively using his or her willpower and resources to subvert our will.
And adapting to circumstances.
Smart, adaptable, well-funded, well-trained, committed, serving an end that they believe in, whether that's financial gain or geopolitical or whatever else. So we can never do enough, we can always do more, and it becomes a question of trade-offs around cost and convenience.
Do you think that the election systems in general are more secure than they were in 2016?
One of my favorite lines, one of the lines that stuck with me from reading the 9/11 Commission report, almost 2 decades ago now, was that the commissioners attributed what happened on 9/11, at least in part, to a failure of imagination on the part of the US government. And one thing that has radically changed, in my view, since 2016 is the blinders are off with respect to a failure of imagination. We now can imagine what could happen. We no longer view our election system as inviolable. And so that simple act of awareness on the part of the government, the candidates, and the population, means, in my view, that we're better off, much better off.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that policymakers, security vendors, even the big end user companies out there, there's no longer a thinking line of nobody would dare try that.
Exactly.
Okay, wow. You just made us all very nervous, I think.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not trying to spread fear. I just think that this is geopolitical competition, right?
It's the reality of the situation.
Everything is on the table, always. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think is the best way for the U.S. to protect, I guess, the election process from foreign interference?
Yeah, I think we have to be careful in defining our terms, maybe, to start. And without parsing things so finely that it becomes too complex. And so in my own mind, I think about election security as falling into 3 big buckets. You have the bucket of misinformation and disinformation, right? The Twitter bots and the Facebook stuff, everything that we've all read about week after week on the front page of the paper, acts to either undermine or sway critical pieces of the electorate, spread disinformation or almost weaponized misinformation. So there's that piece of it, and that is one component. A second component I would call maybe campaign security, right? This is the phishing attacks, ransomware attacks on the campaigns, dumps of emails that can embarrass or compromise a candidate or reveal internal debate about a policy position or whatever. So there's campaign security, and then there's election security, which is the actual mechanism of voting, and anything that would either inhibit that, like jamming a phone bank, or throw into doubt the fidelity of the outcome.
Okay. Analysts that track this closely are perhaps less concerned about, say, physical hacks of election systems and voting machines and that sort of thing. And to your earlier point, the prospect of phishing, of email-based attacks, of the prospect of ransomware that could effectively hold hostage the election process. I mean, is this on the radar? Is this something that you and your security brethren are worried about, looking at, planning for? Where in the process are you with that?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about security, and one of the things that attracts me to it, and I think attracts a lot of us to it who are involved in it, is in a way your job is to worry about 5 out of every 3 things, right? Like, it's paranoia is a good thing in this industry, because whatever, again, it gets back to the sentient adversary, whatever like devious, crazy, harebrained scheme we could sit here and concoct, you can bet that our adversaries are doing that too.
Right,
and
or adding their own
making
special
it work.
touches
Yeah, right,
to it.
right, exactly. I can't claim to be the most nefarious guy in the room, so like somebody's always going to take it to the nth degree, right? And so if we can conceive of something, if you and I can sit here and conceive of a highly sophisticated and hard to detect or attribute tampering attack in the tiny slivers of the electorate in a few districts, in a few states that actually sway the outcome, then I'm willing to bet that foreign intelligence services are thinking the same way.
Yeah, sure. Whose responsibility is it then to provide the security for the 2020 election?
Yeah, boy. I'll go kind of Jeffersonian on you on that and say, I mean, this is a democratic society. It's all of our responsibility. And the challenge then is, if it's everyone's responsibility, it's no one's responsibility. But I mean, do vendors have a responsibility? Of course. Do citizens have a responsibility to be informed? Of course. Does the government have a responsibility to safeguard itself and the integrity of the process? Yes. I mean, I think it's a shared responsibility. Everybody has a role to play.
All right. Nate, you've made us all very nervous and also a lot more aware. Thanks for joining us today.
Thrilled to be here. Thank you.
We've been talking to Nate Fick, General Manager of Elastic Security. This has been Terry Sweeney for the Dark Reading News Desk. Thanks for joining us.